The World Bank is to spend about $700 million to combat desertification in the Sahel region, where 19 northern states in Nigeria will benefit. And the race to meeting the 2030 decarbonization target is gathering momentum in Africa as a carbon emission control device on cars come on stream. Now, these are the main issues in this week's edition of Africa Weekly. I am Charles Alpha, welcoming you to the program. Now, efforts are on by the World Bank to restore about 2,000 degraded landscapes occasioned by desertification in 19 northern states and the Federal Capital Territory of Nigeria. Now, the efforts are in the form of distribution of operational logistics to MDAs for the implementation of the agroclimate resilience in semi-arid landscapes. Erosion and land degradation constitute some of the major climate impacts being faced in some parts of northern Nigeria, causing loss of large hectares of habitable and arable lands. The Agroclimate Resilience in Semi-Arid Landscapes, Acresal, funded by the World Bank and implemented by the Federal Ministry of Environment, is a 6-year project plan to restore about 4 million hectares of landscapes in 19 northern states and the FCT, with the deployment of operational vehicles.
So this aspect of the certification is what Acresal is supposed to address. The land area is very wide. That's why we say 19 states and FCT. And that is why you need vehicles to move around to see what is happening.
With this distribution, Acresal is pitching its targets on restoring 1 million landscape before the end of its project duration, with 12 northern states already reviewed.
Going to pledge to support them at any capacity they want us to do.
About $700 million has been earmarked by the World Bank for the project, and it is expected that this gesture will spur the implementation ministries, departments and agencies to show commitments and ensure timely delivery on the project. All right, joining me right now in the studio to talk more on the Acresal project is the National Coordinator, Agroclimate Resilience in Semi-Arid Landscapes, Dr. Abdul Hamid Omar. I want to say thank you very much, Doctor, for finding time to talk to us on Africa Weekly.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now let's begin this conversation, by first of all talking to us on what is agroclimate resilience in semi-arid landscape. What is it all about?
Essentially speaking, Acresal, acronym for Agroclimatic Resilience in Semi-Arid Landscapes Project. It's aimed at intervening in essentially improving landscape degradation in largely the northern states of Nigeria. These northern states are 19 and FCT. The degraded landscapes arising from climate change issues and natural activities. That's essentially what Acresal is aimed to deliver.
Okay, so now you said it is, we know that it is a World Bank funded project and being implemented by the Federal Ministry of Education through Acresal. So how much of investment are we talking about here?
Yes, essentially speaking, the project is led by the Federal Ministry of Environment and co-led by the Ministries of Water Resources and Sanitation and Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. These are the three fundamental ministries that are charged to deliver the instrumentality and components of the Acresal project. The amount that the federal government of Nigeria and 19 states of northern part of this country and FCT actually sign off is $700 million US.
Okay, so with this amount, what is the project lifespan and targeted degraded land areas expected to be covered by this project? And tell us what percentage of this degraded landscape has been recovered so far since the takeoff for this project?
Thank you very much for the question. Essentially speaking, the landscape marked is to deliver 1 million of degraded landscapes in the northern part of Nigeria. And this is in compliance to the federal government of Nigeria's involvement in what we call the Paris Accord, wherein the federal government of Nigeria had an intention and promises to deliver the coverage and recovery of 4 million degraded landscape by the year 2030. Acresal project seeks to deliver 1 million of those degraded landscapes in 6 years. The project duration is a 6-year tenure, which commences in the month of June in year 2022. So it's expected that by March of year 2028, the project would have delivered a minimum of 1 million degraded landscapes in the country.
Okay, so at this point now, you are confident that the project is meeting the required mandate. In other words, what impact is this making on the beneficiaries of the program right now? What impact has it made so far?
So far, so good. Like I said, the project just started in year 20. Effective date was basically year 2022. So we're talking approximately a few months after 1 year. And based on statistics available now, with the project just commencing, the project is really gingering and empowering itself toppling to take off. And at this preliminary implementation stage, the coast looks really clear and inviting, to the extent that we can happily say we have covered a minimum of 2,000 to 3,000 degraded hectares of degraded landscape. So the speed looks very good, and the beneficiaries are enormous. For instance, we have statistically been able to mobilize and engage and sensitize over 100,000 communities in this northern part of the country, and the list of beneficiaries immediately could be seen in states like Nasarawa, Adamawa, Kaduna, Niger, where in some of the landscape activities and areas that concerns water supply, because the project, like I said, is anchored by and driven by 3 ministries. You recall environment, which is degraded landscapes of the country, agriculture, because that's the mainstay, and the sustainability and recovery of this degraded land requires vegetation, which is agri-driven, and you require water. And that's why the project essentially speaks to areas of watershed and catchment management plan. So the list of the beneficiaries are enormous and large. The expectation of the project is that by the end of the project in 6 years, we would have been able to have a minimum of 3.4 million beneficiaries. And so far so good. The list is high, and the governors can attest to that. The governors have so keyed in because this project is not only multifaceted, it is multi-level.
Thank you very much, Dr. Abdulhamid Umar, National Coordinator, Acresal. Thank you very much for finding time to shed more light on this project and the impact it's making in the northern state. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, viewers. My pleasure. Thanks.
Now, head of the African Development Bank Group, Dr. Kiwumi Adesina, has expressed delight over the completion and handover of a landmark Trans-Gambia Corridor project, referred to as the Senegambia Bridge, financed with a $102 million grant by the bank. The AFDB president said the economic integration and trade between Senegal and Gambia, as well as other African countries in the region, have increased significantly since the construction of the bridge.
Mr. President, you have intellectual property right for Jollof. Thank you very much.
President of the AFDB, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, on a 2-day official visit to the Gambia to commission some projects, also inaugurated a 24-kilometer access road to Senegambia Bridge to Gambia. He commended the Gambian government's proactiveness in delivering the access road to the Senegambia Bridge, which is another landmark project financed by the African Development Bank Group with co-financing from the European Union through the African Infrastructure Platform. He noted that the completion of the access road to the Senegambia Bridge will further support the development of trade and transport facilitation.
I applauded his effort of the president on infrastructure. It seems to, as he told me, without infrastructure there's no development, and I agree with him. He said the first priority for him is infrastructure, second priority infrastructure, third priority infrastructure. I said, Mr. President, infrastructure is like the backbone in the body. If you have a backbone, you have an economy. If you don't have a backbone, you cannot thrive in an economy.
Meanwhile, the African Development Bank plans to support Gambia to unlock its renewable energy potential. The AFDB boss pointed out that Gambia has potential to generate 430 megawatts of solar, 200 megawatts of wind power, and another 25 megawatts from biomass, which when combined is enough energy to power every home and business in the country, with a lot more for export.
Nigeria is pursuing economic recovery and growth plan on multiple fronts to restore hope on the largest economy on Africa continent. Now, the agriculture is one key driver of such move, and here we interact with the president of the Federation of Association of Commodities of Nigeria on the role of that critical subsector. Joining me now in the studio to talk more on the commodity markets or the sector of the economy or agriculture, so to say, is the president of Federation of Agricultural Commodities Association of Nigeria, and he is Sheriff Balo. I want to say thank you very much for coming on Africa Weekly.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Okay, now to begin with, I need you to help us outline the role of this commodity sector in the agricultural space of Nigeria.
Commodities play a very vital role in the agricultural space in Nigeria. Commodity forms about 70% of the agricultural space, and it's very vital, and this plays a role in various ways in our economy. If you look at the economic sector, it contributes to the GDP because a lot of the agricultural commodities that we export contributes to our GDP through the earnings of foreign exchange. Such commodities like ginger, cocoa, shea butter, sesame seed, which contributes substantially. And then again, if we look at rural development, a lot of processing is done at the rural level where the farms are, so that helps to bring development to the rural areas in terms of infrastructure, road, electricity, and so on. Then we look at the issue of diversification of our economy. The earnings that we make from the export of these commodities help us to diversify our economy away from oil, which is our main foreign exchange earner, and then diversifying into agricultural commodities, which also earn substantial foreign exchange. So that presents diversification. Now, if we look at the role also commodity plays in terms of food security, the main crops that are staple in Nigeria that provides food security for us, such as rice, maize, sorghum, soya. These are all agricultural commodities, and they play a large role in our economy and play a large role in the agro space in general.
Okay, you sound so very, positive about the whole thing. Like there aren't any challenges, inhibiting the progress or the success in that sector. I'd like to ask, is there any form of challenges, mitigating the success, of this particular sector you just enumerated?
Oh, definitely. There are lots of challenges in the sector, beginning from infrastructure to post-harvest technology, post-harvest facilities, processing facilities, lack of finance by the farmers. Like, most of the farmers, or majority of the farmers in Nigeria are small-scale farmers, or in some cases you can actually regard them as subsistence farmers, where most of the size of land they cultivate on the average is less than 1 hectare. So access to finance is very important to enable them be able to increase the acreage which they farm on. Then also you have challenges with the land tenure systems, where they are not able to get titles for their land, and being able to use the certificate or the titles to be able to access finance. And then you have a situation also where you don't have a perfect market mechanism that will help to hedge against prices of commodities in terms where there are shortages, or in terms where there are excesses. We have those challenges. And then, of course, providing the right price for the farmers to be able to earn a living wage and able to make profit from what he has planted is also something, is also a big challenge that needs to be resolved in either through the provision of some sort of storage facilities where the farmers can take his products when there is excess, and then get a receipt which he can come and redeem at times when prices have stabilized in the market. So there are a whole lot of challenges. These are surmountable, and we look forward to partnering with the government in finding solutions to some of these problems.
Okay, so they are surmountable, quite okay, like you said, but how and what is your organization doing to surmount these problems?
Yes, we're engaging with government to ensure that the right policies are put in play. And also the Federation engages with the different commodity associations in trying to, fashion out capacity building, trying to provide education, trying to provide extension services through development partners and other stakeholders to enable the farmer get the best, be able to come out with efficient way of production, educate them about post-harvest processing and all of that. So we advocate, and not only with government, but the general stakeholders. So those are some of the ways that we're rolling out to, or we've rolled out and are implementing in times to solve some of these problems that are within our purview. But majorly government has a big role to play, especially in terms of policies that will drive the sector and will enable private stakeholders to come into the agri space and contribute their own quota.
Okay, now, Mr. Sharif, one thing we know is that the prices of food, when they go up, they don't always come down, and so Nigerians will keep complaining and keep talking about the incessant increase in prices of commodities and all of that. So how is your organization helping to moderate the prices of commodities in Nigeria to at least suits the customer in a way, in as much as they are out to make profits, talking about the sellers or the producers now?
Well, we could spend the whole day talking about the vagaries of pricing of products in the market, or prices of commodities in general. This is driven by so many factors, not just even the farmers themselves, not about even primarily the price of the product. Like we mentioned some of the challenges facing the sector. We talked about infrastructure. If you look at infrastructure as it affects pricing, Farmers are in typical rural areas where there are bad roads. And for you to get logistic providers that will go to some of those areas, they will charge you very high to be able to carry the commodities to the market. A case in point, from Nasarawa State here to move goods to Abuja, transporters are charging as much as 5,000, 6,000 naira per bag, per single bag. So you see how, and that price eventually will translate to the final price which the consumer buys the product. So here the farmer has produced, and probably he's trying to sell at X. But X is not the final price. It has to be X plus all other variables that are involved in it. That's just one I've mentioned about logistics. I talk about the transport cost. The transporters, if you look at what is the cost of transportation, transportation today plays over 50% of the cost in prices of many commodities. It's so expensive to move a truck of commodities from the north to say Lagos or to the southwest, even more expensive than moving the same volume of commodities from Nigeria to China, for example. You know, then you have the various taxes also that the logistic providers face along the way when they're taking goods to the market. There are also a form of taxes. So in general, it's a combination of many issues that come up. Now also, if you look at it from what affects the farmer directly and why its prices are high, it comes down also to one of the problems I mentioned in the challenges, post-harvest loss. If a farmer produces goods and 70% or 60% of it is lost, he'll try to recover the cost from the remaining 30% that is there. So we don't have post-harvest technology. How does he store this good? There's no storage system. An average peasant farmer cannot construct a storage on his own. But if you have shared services where government with private sectors come in and provide storage facility or cold chain facilities or facilities where the small farmers can take his good and he pays a small fee to keep that good, that will help and translate into better prices at the end of the day. Okay. You know, so these are some of the things. So it's not only about just how do you know, moderate the price. Moderating the prices is an ecosystem completely that everybody has to play a role. Okay. You know, to ensure that prices are okay. And then of course government can help to set up, you know, a price a mechanism, you know, where there can be hedging of prices to ensure that the prices remain within the reach of the ordinary man.
So thank you very much. Well, we do know that even when the prices come down, other commodities prices still remain the same. Talk about the post-harvest losses and all of those, you know, factors that you talk about. In the end, it is still the consumer that suffers it. But the most important thing is you are partnering the government. You are doing something to ensure that the prices are regulated in so much that it does not have adverse effect on the consumers. I want to say thank you very much, Mr. Sharif Balogun, for finding time to talk to us on Africa Weekly.
Thank you very much. My pleasure. And I appreciate your inviting me to this program.
That's our package this week on Africa Weekly. Thanks for being part of it. I am Charles Alpha. Thanks for watching.